Hello everyone, this is Zero's Trivia, and today we're continuing our Sima Coup Let's Talk Lore series with episode 4, titled Cao Shuang's Advisors. Before we get started, here's the answer to our trivia question from the end of our last episode, and be sure to stay tuned for a new trivia question at the end of this episode. So last time, we ended as Cao Shuang grew increasingly frustrated with Sima Yi's ever-growing military achievements as he too wanted the spotlight for himself. So, with the help of his close circle of advisors, a plan was hatched to outshine Sima Yi. But before we can get to that plan, I want to just take this episode to properly introduce Cao Shuang's many advisors and supporters at court, as they too will play an integral role in this political battle against Sima Yi. One name that has already been mentioned in our series so far is Ding Mi, who came up with the plan to help Cao Shuang take control of the Imperial Secretariat by promoting Sima Yi to Grand Tutor. Now, Ding Mi was the son of Ding Fei, who was one of the first troops to join Cao Cao's army back in 189, as Ding Fei shared a hometown with Cao Cao. Because of this, Cao Cao was very trusting of Ding Fei. And in 196, when Cao Cao had secured the emperor and moved the capital to Xuchang, Ding Fei was given a captain position in charge of the Imperial Palace Guards. Now, Ding Fei is most famous for saving Cao Cao's life during Ma Chao's rebellion in 211, as when Ma Chao surprised Cao Cao's forces mid-crossing the Yellow River, Ding Fei released all the livestock in the army to distract Ma Chao's nomadic horsemen, as many opted to loot the livestock instead of continue to shoot at Cao Cao, who at the time was being carried by General Xu Chu on a very small ferry, with Xu Chu's other hand holding Cao Cao's saddle as a shield to block all the incoming arrows. But despite Ding Fei's heroics, he would never actually be promoted past his captain position, as he was also an extremely greedy man and constantly broke the law and took bribes. While officials kept reporting Ding Fei's wrongdoings to Cao Cao, Cao Cao never punished him, until Ding Fei was imprisoned in 216 for swapping out his own sickly cattle stock with healthy ones from the government barn. This was a serious crime at the time, and Ding Fei was stripped of his title and set to be imprisoned for many years. Yet when Cao Cao finally found out about this, he immediately pulled Ding Fei out of prison, released him, and returned him to his original post as the captain of the Imperial Palace Guards, as Cao Cao explained to the court officials that Ding Fei is like the lovable dog that you have, who occasionally steals some of your food or breaks something in the house, but at the end of the day, you know this dog will guard your home and catch mice to protect what is really valuable. So while Ding Fei never leveraged his relationship with Cao Cao into any meaningful government posts, he did get to live out his life as the captain of the Imperial Palace Guards until his death in 219. Ding Fei would leave behind just one son in Ding Mi, who in his youth received quite an education, but because of his dad's low rank, Ding Mi never had the connections to enter politics himself, but Ding Mi always envisioned himself as this scholar who would one day enter the upper class. So once Cao Pi usurped the Han and moved the capital from Ye to Luoyang, most of the nobilities then moved away from Ye, and suddenly there were countless estates left empty. So Ding Mi developed a habit of borrowing and then squatting in these luxurious mansions to live out his dream of being in the upper class. However, as Cao Pi started to award out more prince titles, there were many princes who would end up residing in Ye. And one such prince would find Ding Mi not only squatting in the estate assigned to him, but also rudely questioning why he was there, as Ding Mi chased him out of the door. Furious, the prince reported Ding Mi to the authorities, who quickly tossed Ding Mi into prison, until it was confirmed that he was the son of Ding Fei, which got him out of jail. Sadly, this record will keep Ding Mi from getting a job in politics until Cao Rui ascended the throne, and somehow he heard that Ding Mi was just as loyal as his father Ding Fei, so Cao Rui handed him a minor job as accountant for the Minister of Agriculture. Here, Ding Mi would meet and befriend Cao Shuang, who was the general of the martial guards at the time, And from this friendship, Dimi would end up becoming one of Cao Shuang's closest advisors. As a matter of fact, after helping Cao Shuang secure control of the imperial secretariat, Cao Shuang promoted Dimi to become one of the imperial secretaries. Dimi would then also be the one who would end up convincing Cao Shuang to stop consulting court matters entirely with Sima Yi, as for a period after Sima Yi's promotion to Grand Tutor, Cao Shuang still consulted with Sima Yi on major issues of state. Now, moving on to Cao Shuang's second advisor, we have Deng Yang, who used to be the former mayor of Luoyang. He was described to be quite ugly, not only in his looks, but also in his posture, as he walked loosely, never stood up straight, and always sat as if he was sinking into his seat. And from these descriptions, I'm fairly certain this meant he was a user of the drug 5-mineral powder, which was especially popular amongst the second-generation gentry clan scholars who snorted the mixture of minerals to get a high and then discuss philosophy in a school of thought named as Xuanxue in Chinese. Now, we're not going to go any deeper into this new school of philosophy, which is a legitimate philosophical school that derives itself from Taoism teachings, and it will actually merge during the Jin Dynasty with Buddhism and use its popularity to help spread Buddhism throughout China during the North and South dynasties following the Jin Dynasty. More importantly, Deng Yang eventually managed to earn himself a role in the imperial secretariat during the early period of Cao Rui's reign, but Cao Rui would eventually fire him for corruption and vanity, along with numerous other officials during a major corruption crackdown during Cao Rui's reign. But after Cao Rui's death, Deng Yang managed to attach himself to Cao Shuang, as Cao Shuang, after gaining control of the imperial secretariat, appointed Deng Yang to become the administrator of Yinchuan, a key post near Luoyang, before moving him to assistant to the Grand General, or assistant to Cao Shuang himself, before finally making him also an imperial secretary. And in this vital role, Deng Yang started to show his corruptible nature once again, as despite being not so good looking himself, he was quite lustful, and oftentimes, instead of taking money as a bribe, he wanted gifts of beautiful women to take in as concubines. Once, Zan Ba's son, Zan Ai, wanted to land a promotion at court that required the help of Deng Yang, so Zan Ai ended up gifting Deng Yang a young concubine of his deceased father as a bribe. And this story eventually got out, and a popular saying in Luoyang became, "Give Deng Yang a concubine, and you too can get a court position." Next up in Cao Shuang's circle of advisors is He Yan, who is perhaps the most famous of Cao Shuang's cohort, as he was the grandson of General He Jin and the stepson of Cao Cao, who took in his widowed mother as a concubine. He Yan was an avid reader of Taoism and one of the early proponents of Xuanxue philosophical school of thought, as he would eventually gain quite a bit of fame from this. He eventually marries Cao Cao's daughter, but his outgoing nature and vanity made him extremely unpopular among Cao Cao's sons, which is why Cao Pi never offered this stepbrother of his any positions, and even refused to speak his name, as Cao Pi only referred to He Yan as that fake son. Likewise, Cao Rui also disliked He Yan due to influence from his father, as He Yan basically was living his days off his relationship as Cao Cao's stepson and off his wife Princess Cao, even though he was also extremely lustful and fielded a vast number of concubines, much to her displeasure. Then after Cao Rui's death, He Yan finally latched onto Cao Shuang, who did not mind He Yan as much, given that his own father, Cao Zhen, was also adopted son of Cao Cao. Now, because He Yan married a princess, he technically cannot hold any court positions according to the rule of law, but once Cao Shuang had full control of the imperial secretariat, this rule was bent to give He Yan one of the chief imperial secretary jobs inside the imperial secretariat, and to make room for He Yan, Cao Shuang even demoted the former chief imperial secretary Lu Yu, who was the son of the famous late Han general Lu Zhi. Now, because of He Yan's upbringing, first as the grandson of He Jin, who was the brother in law to the emperor, and then as the stepson of Cao Cao, he was accustomed to an extravagant lifestyle, which required immense amount of money to maintain. So immediately after he became the chief imperial secretary, he started to abuse his powers to force weak minor imperial princes to hand over land and household tax incomes previously granted to them with their titles. He stole from the imperial coffers and demanded tributes from regional administrators. Things got so bad that very soon, key officials such as Coup started to warn Cao Shuang's brother, Cao Xi, who was the most virtuous one in Cao Shuang's cohort, that He Yan will drag all of them to the abyss with his appetite for greed and thirst for power. Yet when this reached He Yan's ears, he soon found an excuse to strip Coup of all his posts. Now, collectively, He Yan, Deng Yang, and Ding Mi were nicknamed at the time as the three dogs of the imperial secretariat, as together they abused their powers for personal gains and removed countless rivals and critics at court. Aside from these three major advisors, there were also two others within Cao Shuang's circle, in Li Sheng and Bi Gui. Li Sheng was a close friend of Cao Shuang in their younger days, as he held a minor position in Luoyang during Cao Rui's reign. And during Cao Rui's previous mentioned crackdown on corruption, Li Sheng would lose his job and actually end up in prison as his crimes were being investigated. Yet when the preliminary investigation results came out, it appeared that his crimes were connected to so many people that they ended up deciding to just release him, as a thorough investigation would have implicated too many other officials. So in a sense, Li Sheng's crimes were just too big to fail. And now with Cao Shuang in power, Cao Shuang would promote this old friend of his as the mayor of Luoyang. Bi Gui, on the other hand, was not as corrupt as the rest of Cao Shuang's cohort, as he was once a court scholar and had helped educate Cao Rui when he was still a prince. Once Cao Rui became emperor, Cao Rui married one of his distant cousins to Bi Gui and elevated him to a position of the prefect of the Bin province. But unfortunately, he mismanaged relations with the Xianbei tribes, leading to rebellions, and when he tried to crush these rebellions with the military he had under his command, he fumbled the command and led to massive Wei losses and the rise of the Xianbei chieftain Ke Bineng. For his failings, General Jiang Ji actually suggested to the court not to only fire Bi Gui, but also to blacklist him from ever returning to court. And Emperor Cao Rui agreed. But now with Cao Shuang in control, Bi Gui was reactivated despite the blacklist and given the role of lieutenant captain of the Silu province in charge of the military garrisons around Chang'an. Lastly, Cao Shuang had two younger brothers in Cao Xi and Cao Xun, and his cousin Xiahou Xuan in key positions of power that were all part of his inner circle. And in total, these 8 advisors and Cao Shuang dominated the Wei court from the early 240s on, as Sima Yi lost more and more power at court in this decade. Now, with all of Cao Shuang's advisors introduced, let me share their ultimate plan on how to outshine Sima Yi's recent military achievements. Spearheaded by advisors Bi Gui and Li Sheng, the suggestion was an attack on Shuhan through the Tangluo path, with the ultimate goal of breaching the Yangping Gate Pass and seizing control of Hanzhong. And to find out how this attack went, come back next time as we'll pick up our story from here. So hopefully y'all have enjoyed this episode enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below or hitting that like button, as once again, the next episode will be released once this episode gets 300 likes. And as always, I'll see you all then. Bye!